Jay here from Stretford Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, we're in the studio. We are live, so get involved in the chat and the comments. Going to be talking about all the latest Manchester United news. Loads of stories to get through. The big news last night, of course, was Bryan Mbeumo. Manchester United putting in a second bid for Bryan Mbeumo, which we were waiting for, weren't we? We were waiting to see when that was going to happen. It finally happened. The second bid's gone in. We'll hopefully have an update on that either later today or tomorrow in terms of whether Brentford are going to accept it. We don't know. I think that United would expect them to. I think United have had a little while now to sort of test the waters, to see where we're up to, and hopefully, and fingers crossed, United know what they're doing. I mean, you know, first time for everything. So where that second bid is exactly what they think Brentford will accept. But I'll get into that in a minute. First of all, good to see so many people in the chat. Make sure you're hitting that like button as well, please, people. Martin P, Heaven Soul, Real Recognises Real, Brian Casey, all in the chat. Jacoya Trot, good to see all you wonderful people. Right, let's talk about Bryan Mbeumo then, this bid. So you see it here, where's this from? It's this Sky say it here, just to give you a bit of an update, the nuts and bolts. Bryan Mbeumo, Man United make improved £60 million bid for the Brentford forward. Manchester United have admired Bryan Mbeumo for some time and feel he's a good fit for Ruben Amorim's system. Mbeumo system, no, not his toilet system, thank you. Mbeumo keen on move, but Brentford not under pressure to sell. United had an initial bid worth up to 55 million rejected. Spurs held initial talks with Brentford in June over Mbeumo. Doesn't feel like there's much in the Spurs thing, to be honest with you. So there you can see it. The 55 million bid, I think, was 45 million plus 10 million in add-ons. There's now a deal worth more than 60 million. I was guessing the other day, and it is just pure guesswork, that United might come in with a bid of around 52 million plus 10 million in add-ons. So that pushes it past 60 million. But United can go, well, look, it's only around the 50 million mark, sort of up front, and Brentford can go, we've got more than £60 million for a player who's got 1 year left on his deal with another option to extend. So it says here, Mbeumo is understood to be intrigued by Spurs, who have just appointed his former boss, Thomas Frank, but one source has told Sky Sports News that as it stands, he's leaning towards United. Doesn't feel like there's much in the Spurs thing. Sorry, I'm just waiting till we stop. We okay? There we go. And Mbeumo is a player United have admired for a while, and he's seen as a good fit for Ruben Amorim's system. There is a feeling at Brentford that Mbeumo has earned the chance to move to a bigger club this summer if one meets his valuation. So, yeah, we expect him to I expect him to end up at United. He's been saying he wants to come to United. David Ornstein broke the story that he wanted to come to United. We know that as a fact. There doesn't seem to be much happening in terms of Spurs. Don't even know if Spurs are willing to pay what Manchester United are willing to pay for Bryan Mbeumo. He doesn't want to go to Spurs despite the Thomas Frank appointment. So it just feels like this is going to happen sooner or later. That's how it feels. It could go wrong, don't get me wrong. Brentford might say, no, that's not enough. United might say, well, that's it. We're not going to go any higher. But at the moment, it feels like it's moving forward. And also, I know we've been frustrated because we had that first bid, was it on the 4th of June or whenever it was? So it's been another sort of 20 days. But it's still relatively early in the transfer window. We're still only the 24th of June. And let's not forget, we had a week off because you had that week gap where there was no transfer window because of the Club World Cup. So it's not been too bad on United's front. We made the signing of Matheus Cunha on the 1st of June. If we can get another one done this month, that'd be pretty good going for this sort of the first month of the transfer window. I don't think that should be it. I don't think you just bringing in 2 players is anywhere near enough for a Manchester United side that have just finished 15th. However, it would be a massive step in the right direction, bringing in 2 Premier League proven players, 2 Premier League proven attackers who've both got goals. I think both of them have a very similar sort of record when it comes to goal involvements. It's basically a goal involvement every other game. I think Mbeumo's played about 136 games for Brentford and scored around 40 goals and 30 assists during that time. Matheus Cunha, it's around 80 odd games for Wolves, and it's somewhat similar in like 30 goals or whatever, 20 odd goals and 12 assists, something like that. So it adds up to around a goal involvement every other game. So you put those 2 into a United side that was massively misfiring last season, and it's a huge boost for the team. Now, in terms of wages, because everyone likes to lose their mind, don't they, when Manchester United are linked with a player or Manchester United get a player. It's all about wages. Oh, United have offered him more money. That's the only reason you're going to get him. This is from The Guardian. Now, it says here about the wages. I think if we scroll down, we can see the wages. Mbeumo can expect to earn at least 150k a week, the same region of salary as Cunha. Goes on to say last season, Mbeumo scored 20 goals in the league, in the EAG, it says there, while Cunha managed 15. So you can see there, And also, I'm going to get to another little thing there in a minute, so you can leave that out. It's all right. So it says there that he's going to be on 150k a week, or at least 150k a week. Now, there were reports about this a few weeks ago, but then you had all this noise, and it's mainly on social media that Mbeumo was going to get 250k a week. That's why he was going to come to Manchester United. That's why he preferred United over Spurs. That's why he preferred United over Newcastle. It very much felt like rival fans sort of mischief making almost, or having a bit of sour grapes, going, well, you're only getting him because you're about to give him £1 million a month. It doesn't feel like that's the case. I think he's on around 45k a week at the minute at Brentford, and the reports were that he's going to get his wages tripled, so he's still going to be on a lot of money. But 150k a week for a player who's just scored 20 Premier League goals and he's 25 years old, this is his big deal. This is the one sort of contract where he's likely to get the mega money. That's not too extortionate for me. I think that kind of makes sense. 150k a week is about right, and it's a lot better than Manchester United done in the past, where we've signed players and we've given them 400k a week, haven't we? Alexis Sanchez, I think, was on about 400k a week. I think Jadon Sancho was on about up to 300k a week with bonuses. Marcus Rashford, I know we didn't buy him, but when he got his new deal, I think that went up to 300k a week. Similar numbers for Casemiro, and we're still feeling the repercussions of some of those deals where we can't move these players on, or we're struggling to move them on because of the massive wages they're on. So 150k a week doesn't feel too shabby. You can also see there in the story, Chelsea are weighing up whether to revive their interest in United winger Alejandro Garnacho and include Nkunku, Christopher Nkunku, in a deal. The Chelsea head coach Enzo Maresca wants to sign a new wide player this summer. Garnacho was of interest to Chelsea in January and could become a target again if the club failed in their attempt to sign Jamie Gittins from Borussia Dortmund. Bayern have entered the race to sign Gittins. We've got another story, I think, on the Garnacho swap here. Matt Law ran this story. He says Chelsea and Manchester United weigh up deals for Nkunku and Garnacho to move in opposite directions. Chelsea still in talks over Gittins, with Borussia meeting expected to take place in the US during the Club World Cup. Now, just on that, I know on the thumbnail it says swap deal, but that's just basically to make it a lot easier to understand. But it probably wouldn't be a swap deal, because we spoke to Laurie about this a few weeks ago on Inside United, and he said swap deals are very rare because they're very difficult to facilitate because you have two different players on different wages, worth different values. So what might actually happen, even though this sounds bizarre, is Chelsea buy Alejandro Garnacho and United buy Christopher Nkunku. You might think, why don't they just swap? But it doesn't always work that way. It's not that easy. It's very rare for a swap deal. I think the last one United did, was it Sanchez to Arsenal with Mkhitaryan? Sanchez from Arsenal with Mkhitaryan going the other way. So it'd probably be a deal where they buy Garnacho, I'm presuming, for more than we pay for Christopher Nkunku, otherwise what we're doing, and then we'd buy Christopher Nkunku. Let me know what you think about that. Let me know what you think about that deal. Let me know what you think about Bryan Mbeumo wages. I'm going to get into all the chats and the comments now. Shady Lane says, we don't need that bigger squad, play once a week. A couple of people questioning Matt Law. Brian Casey says, swap deal makes zero sense. Yeah, I think it would be a sort of signing on both parts. Chris Griffith says, that one went well. Yeah, that Sanchez swap deal was a bit of a disaster for both clubs, didn't they? I think Arsenal got a little bit of a tune out of Mkhitaryan for a while, but not much, and we got nothing out of Alexis Sanchez. For me, the worst signing in United's history. I don't think he's the worst player we've ever signed, but in terms of expectation and what he delivered, I think he's the worst signing we've ever done. Just was smashing it at Arsenal, more or less ended Matteo Darmian's Premier League career, didn't he? If you remember that game at the Emirates. It was unbelievable. Came to Old Trafford, and other than a good game against Yeovil and a half-decent game at the Etihad, didn't do anything. He was just gone. Santa Notch in the chat, Glenn F in the chat as well. Saeed Benaberu says, how do you feel about Visa from Brentford? I don't see us signing two players from Brentford. I don't think we're going to get Mbeumo and Yohan Wissa as well. And I think Mbeumo is obviously the priority. I think Visa's a good player. I think he's a bit older and he's about 28. There was talk of him moving on in January, I think it was. But I think the bid was around 12 million or something stupid for a player who scored a lot of goals. So I don't think that one's happening. Should we move on? Let's talk about Viktor Gyokeres. So Fabrizio Romano has this story here. Viktor Gyokeres has already personally informed Sporting President Varandas. Now, if you remember, Sporting President Varandas was the one who was coming out with a few statements about Viktor Gyokeres and this gentleman's agreement that didn't exist and all the rest of it, it feels like there's a bit of needle between these two. So he said he's informed Sporting President Varandas about his decision to leave. No intention to play for the club anymore. Gyokeres wants new chapter. He feels heartbroken after exit pact and not expected to return to training, as someone else reports there. I mean, I get it. This is his time to move in it. He's just scored, 52 goals, I think he scored last season, a ridiculous amount of goals. Following another season, the season before he scored a load of goals as well. He's 27, is he? Or he will be 27, I think, by the time the season starts. So this is the time for him to move on. He obviously feels like, right, I've done it at Sporting, I've had 2 very good seasons, I want to move on, I want to progress. However, it doesn't look like there's a lot of clubs in for him. And a big sort of reason for that might be this sort of buyout clause of, I think, around 62.5 million, very similar, if not identical, to Matheus Cunha's buyout clause. So he said, Viktor Gyokeres, he had this gentleman's agreement with Sporting that he could leave for a little bit less than that. However, the Sporting president's come out and said that's not true. Them two have fallen out. Now it seems that Viktor Gyokeres wants to move. Now, there's still the possibility that he could go to Juve. There were reports a few weeks ago that Juve were willing to give him £11 million a year, I think it was, or £11 million contract, which is, I think it was £11 million a year, sorry, that is the kind of wages he wants. Other clubs aren't willing to do that. There was talk of him going to Arsenal. Arsenal, however, seems to be more focused on Benjamin Sesko. That seems to be their priority. That deal isn't done, though, so there might be a twist in that sale. You never know. United were linked with him, but again, the United links seem to be just sort of logical ones, where you go, OK, Manchester United have Ruben Amorim's the manager. Ruben Amorim worked with Viktor Gyokeres at Sporting, brought him to Sporting. He scored loads of goals. He knows the system. He fits in the system. United need goals. Gyokeres to United makes a lot of sense. But do Manchester United have the money to buy Viktor Gyokeres? Have we even made a bid for him, shown any interest? Maybe, in terms of interest. We've certainly not made a bid. The only way I can see Manchester United buying Viktor Gyokeres, though, is if we sell some players. So we'd have to sell the likes of Alejandro Garnacho. Now, whether that we do sell Garnacho and we use that money to buy Christopher Nkunku, I don't know. It's just a story that's doing the rounds at the minute. But if we sold Garnacho, we sold Marcus Rashford, we sold Jadon Sancho, if we sold Anthony, then maybe we could use that money to buy Viktor Gyokeres. I wouldn't be surprised. I said this on Transfers Live the other night. I wouldn't be surprised if United bought Viktor Gyokeres as a sort of last-minute thing. If he doesn't get a move anywhere else and he's still at Sporting, come towards the end of the transfer window, it could be a deadline day move. Maybe that helps or makes sense for both clubs. Maybe if it's like, look, no one's coming for him, if we can get some money, a decent amount of money, and Manchester United can get him at a little bit of a cut price, maybe there's like a £40-odd million move that can happen deadline day. It's just speculation, it's just a hunch, but I don't know. Kimani W says, morning Jay in the chat, still up at work at 5 in the morning. Yukin Farkov, nice one, says, I don't want Gyokeres purely because his agent is a pleb. Sounds like Camino Raiola 2.0. I don't know much about his agent, but it does seem like, for his agent though, this is it for him. This is his agent's chance to make some big money. If Gyokeres gets a move for 62 million quid or whatever it is, I'm guessing his agent's going to get about 6 million quid, usually about 10% in it. So he's probably looking at it going, look, I need to get my client a move here, because if he stays another year at Sporting, then his value's going to drop because he's going to have 1 year less on his contract. So his agent's probably desperate to move him on, as the player's desperate to move on. So they're probably doing all sorts of shenanigans. Brian Casey says deadline day deal incoming. I won't be surprised. Stranger things have happened, and I'm not ITK. I'm just saying it could happen. Chris Griffiths says, mad take, I'd keep Andy. I think he might surprise us all. Bring back the fidget spinner. No, I'm not into that at all. He just didn't work out at Manchester United. He's done well at Real Betis. Sell him. Now is the time to sell him. Seriously, that player we saw at Real Betis was not the player I've been watching at Manchester United for basically the last 18 months of his Manchester United career. So I think we need to move on from Andy. Seriously, I think we've got a good opportunity to move him on because of how well he did at Real Betis. And also, the Liga seemed to work for him. It did. I know he did quite well in the Conference League as well, certain games, but I just don't think he's a Premier League player. That's my take on it. You may disagree. Steve out says, free Anthony, let him go, be happy. Yeah, he's happy there as well. That makes such a big difference to a player. You can see how he's revelling in it at Real Betis. I hope he gets a move there. Faraz Khan says, Gyokeres or Osimhen. Jay, if it was up to me, I'd have Viktor Osimhen, but I'd take either of them. I think if Manchester United could get Bryan Mbeumo, Matheus Cunha and Viktor Gyokeres, Jesus wept, that'd be a REIT window, wouldn't it? Considering what we had last season, where I think amongst the front three, I mean, we weren't scoring goals, were we? I think Ahmad scored, was it 7 or 8 Premier League goals? I think Xerxes scored maybe 5 or 6. Similar numbers from Rasmus Højlund. If you could get 3 of the players of the calibre of Gyokeres, Cunha and Mbeumo, 2 of whom have got Premier League experience, have scored loads of goals in the Premier League, and 1 of whom has scored 50-odd goals last season in all competitions, then I think you'd be in a very, very strong position. Ruzeb Ayasi says, after Gyokeres says he prefers Arsenal, Jay, do you think him coming to Man United would be a smart choice? I'm not really that fussed about that. He may have said that thinking he was going to get a move to Arsenal. I don't know. And also, he may have said that, look, going, it's Champions League football and it's a title challenge. Arsenal are in a title race every season. They're in Champions League football. Just got to the semi-finals of the Champions League. Viktor Gyokeres signing might push them one step closer to winning it. Maybe he was looking at that. I don't know. I'm not too fussed if a player says things like that. I'm more fussed about what he does if we get him. So if we got him, he'd change his tune money. He'd probably say, oh, I never said that, or I'm happy to be United. They always do, players. I'm not that bothered. Let me know what you think. Get involved in the chat in the comments. Hit that like button, please, people. Over 1,300 people watching. Let's get to 200 likes at least. Chris Holt. What do you think of Rashford saying he would like the number 10? He would like to be number 9 and try to work it out with Amorim. Do you think it's media spin in case he doesn't get a move? I think that ship sailed. I don't think Marcus Rashford has much of a future at Manchester United. Pains me to say it. There was a time when he was my favourite player, but it's just untenable, really, isn't it? I don't see him coming back to United and it working out. I just don't. And I think that it's a shame because there's a player there, and I think he could play as a number 9, and I think he'd be a good option for us. But the manager moved him on for a reason to Aston Villa. We needed him last season, and he wasn't in the squad for about 8 weeks, was it? I think he didn't make a squad for about 8 weeks. Obviously dropped for them in Manchester Derby. So I don't see Marcus Rashford having a future at Manchester United. I think we need to move on. Should we talk about Casemiro? I think we've got a Casemiro story here. So this has been translated. I think this was Al Jazeera or somewhere. This was first reported. And it's saying here that Al Nassr are close to signing Casemiro, the Manchester United midfielder, during the upcoming summer transfer period. And sources indicate that negotiations are at an advanced stage. I'm not too sure they are. It could happen. He has been linked with Saudi before. It kind of makes sense. Does he have much of a future at Manchester United? I'm not 100% sure, but I'm not going to hang my hat on that story. One to keep an eye on. In an ideal world, you probably would move Casemiro on. He's on massive money. He had a decent end towards to the season last season, but I still think there's question marks regarding whether he's good enough for the Premier League, and I don't think he's going to get better. He's a player that, age is catching up with him, so maybe you do need to move him on, although maybe you could keep him as an option if you can't move him on, just for a bit of experience, and he can always come in and do a job in certain games. But I wouldn't be surprised if we were looking to move him on. It's just wages, man. Wages. Huge wages. Dodgy's mum says, do not believe the Casemiro story either. Yeah, I think it's a bit of literal paper talk then. Let's talk about Emi Martinez. So I think our mate Laurie Whitwell might have had this one. He's tagged in this tweet from Jacob Tanswell. He says, United have had dialogue with Martinez's representatives since the start of the year. A pursuit hinges on Andre Onana's future. Martinez prefers United Europe to Saudi. Villa yet to receive any contacts. I think he's got a few years left on his Aston Villa contract, so I think he's going to cost some money. That could be the sticking point for Manchester United. If we are looking to bring a striker in, which I don't know how that's going to happen, but there's various reports, plus a midfielder, we're being linked with midfielders as well. There's talk that we want a number 8. Can we afford to bring a goalkeeper in? Unless, as it states there, we move Andre Onana on and maybe make some sales. One to keep an eye on. We have been linked with Martinez for a little while now. When we did this story a few weeks ago, I think it was a Sunday, I was in my kitchen, and loads of people in the chat were sort of favouring this move. I think Andre Onana, a lot of the fan base are losing faith with him, and I get it, but it does seem as though Ruben Amorim hasn't quite made his mind up to move Andre Onana on just yet. So I wouldn't be surprised if Andre Onana is our starting goalkeeper next season. CTB says, poor Onana, he hasn't been that bad. He's done enough to earn another season to prove himself. I think if I'm being kind, I'd say the jury's out. If I'm being unkind, I'd say he's been poor. JB says, Martinez is not a good choice in my opinion. Yeah, there's also a scenario here where it's not binary. It's not either Martinez or Onana. You might not think Martinez is good enough, and you might not think Onana is good enough. You might think United need to look at someone else. It became like that with Onana and De Gea. It was like those were the only two options. Well, they weren't. So, yeah, you might, as a lot of people do, you might not think either of them are the right choice for Manchester United. And let's be honest, Emi Martinez didn't exactly cover himself in glory last time he played at Old Trafford. Let's talk about Jadon Sancho. I don't know where this is from. This is This is from a journalist. I think, is this journalist based?
I think he's just on Italy, I think.
Oh, he's in Italy, sorry. Even Fenerbahce, there's a nice way of putting it. Even Fenerbahce's after Jadon Sancho. Eh? That's how rubbish he is. Even they want him. It's a weird way to start a tweet. The Turks have submitted an £18 million offer to Manchester United and proposed a 3-year contract plus 1-year optional deal at £12 million per season. The player has offers from Juve and Napoli, but with a significantly lower salary. We'll see if any of this is true. Lots of rumours, stories doing the rounds on Jadon Sancho. He obviously could have gone to Chelsea, but it would have been a 90 grand a week salary, which is nowhere near what he's on at the minute, 250k a week. I'm not his biggest fan, but I understand why he might not want to have a 2/3 pay cut. So we'll see what happens with that one. Should we talk about Jonny Evans? Just quickly, Evans set for new Man United role. You can just scroll up. Jonny Evans is in. Sorry, keep going. No, I want to read it. Jonny Evans is in time to remain at Man United in a staff role after his playing contract expired at the end of the season. While it was assumed Northern Ireland centre-back would retire, the 37-year-old has been determined to assess all his options. Mindful he did not want to leave his base in the northwest of England, it is understood Evans is in advanced talks with United over a role that would see him look after the loan deals put in place for younger players. I'd love to see Jonny Evans stay at the club. I think he's a fantastic servant, fantastic player, very experienced as well when it comes to being at Manchester United, what it takes to succeed at Manchester United, coming through the academy and all that stuff. Just makes a lot of sense for me. And yeah, if we can keep Jonny Evans at the club, then we should do. Been saying this, we all have on this channel for a long time now, and it looks like it's going to happen, which is a massive positive. Loads of videos coming up later on today, so make sure if you're not doing so already, hit like, share and subscribe. We've got a video with Finn that was out where he looked at Nick Cox and his influence at Manchester United behind the scenes with the academy there, so go and check that out. I've been Jay Moy. This has been The Paper Talk. Thanks for watching.